Welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Join Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton as they pull back the curtain on everything commercial real estate and introduce you to some of the top minds in the industry. If you want to take your skills to the next level and be part of a growing community of CRE professionals across the world, this is for you.
Hello, and welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. My name is Sam Carlson. I am your host, and I'm pleased to introduce the two co-creators of the Adventures in CRE, both blog, website, and audio series, this audio series, the creators, Spencer Burton and Michael Belasco. How are you guys doing today?
Very well.
Yeah, great to be here.
I'm really excited. In fact, today we're going to jump into the beginning of a little bit of the story behind you guys, why the blog, a little bit more about you, as well as some amazing things that folks, listeners can learn about when, modeling real estate, learning more about their careers, things they're trying to aspire to. Okay. So in order to do that, I'd like to just get a quick introduction. Maybe Spencer, we could kind of start with you as far as your background. How did you get into commercial real estate? And maybe a little bit about your story, and we'll just turn the time over to you for a minute.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Spencer Burton. I'm in my current position, a director at a real estate investment firm based in Dallas. I source acquisition, development, debt opportunities for the company's $45 billion real estate investment fund. My background, I started in land brokerage. At some point, I transitioned into a development management role, working for kind of a boutique development firm, developing residential housing projects in Latin America. Ultimately concluded that I wanted to transition to kind of the LP side of the world, wanted to move out of residential development and into a commercial investment role. So I went back to business school, spent 2 years at Cornell getting a master's in real estate degree, and came out of there and went to work for an institutional real estate firm. So I'm excited to talk over in the coming episodes about my background and my thoughts on careers in real estate financial modeling.
Cool.
And then, interview various people about that as well. So.
Awesome. And then Michael, a little bit about your background before, and you guys have a really interesting way you met. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but before you guys met, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, yes. So back in 2009, I started working for a small-scale residential construction, home remodeling, home building company in Philadelphia. I was years, ended up becoming a project manager there, and ultimately I wanted to go back to school so that I could get into institutional and large-scale real estate development. So I went back to Cornell, where I got my dual master. I got the MBA and master in real estate. And from there, I ended up going to Hines, where I was project managing with the team on 2 large-scale projects, towers in San Francisco. And I have recently left the company to work on Adventures in CRE full-time, and also to begin my own shop, which more to come on that maybe in future podcasts or more announcements on the website soon to come.
Well, wonderful. So you guys both had a bit of a background in real estate, whether it be construction, brokering, different, deals and working in the industry itself. But both of you decided to kind of, pivot your career path and go to Cornell, was it? Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that where you guys met?
Yeah, kind of. So I was living in Panama at the time. I had been accepted to the Baker program in real estate. Michael had as well. And he was living in Peru, and I'll let him kind of give some color around that. But we had that shared interest in Latin America. Prior to entering the program, they kind of shared who were the incoming class, I guess. And so it was a chance to kind of reach out to other people. And so I reached out to Mike. Maybe you reached back out to me. I don't recall, but anyway, we connected via email. So that was our first interaction. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when we came to campus, we have some shared interests, both Latin America. We both like Brian Regan.
So I like his man on the moon. His man on the boom bit is good. I like that one.
Clean comedy.
That's good.
So no, we hit it off from the start, and so and I won't step on your questions about how the blog came to be, but just that kind of connection, personal connection we had made sense as we look to other things.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about the genesis of the blog, but I am really interested. So you guys were both going into the same program, so you kind of connected on email. You both had that Latin American interest, which is awesome. And then going to school at Cornell, did you start working together on projects, or what was that relationship like before even the blog launch? How'd you become, buddies?
Yeah, so ironically, it's kind of, very early on, sort of a pre-genesis of what the website is today. I think, understanding early on the importance of financial modeling and my, at that time, lack of expertise in it was a real driver for me because, understanding that when you get out into the real world, especially out of grad school, this is a focus for jobs. And we'll talk more about that later. But we really, I think, sort of bonded at first around these extracurricular sort of work groups. I mean, we hung out with the same people, and we were obviously in a small class of 25. And so everybody naturally got close, but we would, there would be late nights where, Spencer and I, and maybe one or two other people would be in the library trying to figure out, real estate finance and real estate financial modeling. And, as dorky as it sounds, I mean, that was a big connection for us where we were diving deep into real estate finance and financial modeling and really focusing on that aspect of our careers. And, then we were hanging out outside of the program and, we got to know each other's families. And so it sort of just stemmed from there. But really the genesis was this mutual passion for this aspect. So.
Well, and if you're listening to this audio series, chances are you have been exposed to, at some level, the Adventures in CRE website. Whether that's true or not, maybe you're listening for the first time and you ought to go check it out. But so how long ago did you actually start the website?
Yeah, so it was roughly the summer between our first and second year at Cornell, right, Michael?
It's like 2014.
That would have been 2014-ish.
We should know that.
Okay,
yeah, but it's roughly that.
But it's roughly that time is when I guess our first blog post went live. Yeah,
so 5 years or so,
roughly.
Okay, and I've heard, obviously we kind of talked off air. I've heard a little bit of that, but I'm really interested. I kind of want to know the state. I mean, when we're talking real estate financial modeling, you guys were grinding it out in the libraries of Cornell, which I can just picture you guys doing that. But it also, in talking to you, that whole skill set and honing what is financial modeling in real estate wasn't like a light switch or an overnight thing. So I'm kind of wondering, what was the state of, like, how did you learn it? What was it like? I mean, even just 5 years ago, what was the situation like? Why did you guys decide to start this blog, this website?
It's a couple things. In our generation, when we want to know something, we Google it, right? And there's generally a video available. There's a few tutorials, either in a blog format or some other format. And so as I began to explore concepts, waterfall modeling leases, even terms in commercial real estate, there are two things I noticed. The first is there wasn't a lot of readily available information. There were courses to be bought online. They were expensive and on a college budget that they were kind of out of my reach. And then the other piece was there wasn't a lot of convention around many of these terms. So we would hear a term, cash on cash return, and you go and you Google it online, and you get varying levels of information, and some are contradictory. And we'd learn one thing in the classroom, and I was seeing we were seeing other things, and I shouldn't say we, because I'll let Michael speak for himself, but I was seeing other things online, and so I thought to myself, as I'm gaining this skill, why not share it with others? Right? And there wasn't a business idea there. It was simply, hey, it needs to be done. So as I'm learning, why not share that.
Right.
And so I think that was the main driver behind Adventures in CRE. And there's some other ones that we'd be happy to talk about as well.
Mike?
That was the main driver behind Adventures in CRE. And there's some other ones that we'd be happy to talk about as well.
Micah, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. For me, anxiety. And seriously, getting in to grad school and, being there, Spencer and I shared with a lot of other students the angst of needing to understand this stuff and not exactly finding what we needed. And it became clearer when we would sit at, the Associate Real Estate Council events, and you'd hear people who had just recently graduated or a couple years into their careers. And, they emphasize the importance of understanding real estate financial modeling. And so for us, or for me, I should say, it was, all right, this is something I need to know, and it's something a lot of other people need to know. And so I realized that there is an opportunity there to share this knowledge as we were learning it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, let's create this, let's create this library. And like, Spencer said, it was I thought when we got out of school, we'd have a year or so and it would just die. And when we started putting the stuff out, the website grew so fast because there really was that need out there, and it kind of fueled us. We would get a lot of emails back and forth and people asking us questions, or, even looking at our models and giving us suggestions, which we would take. And so it was this constant iterative process of learning things even outside of what we would do at our day jobs. And so it just sort of started cycling and growing and growing. And so, it kind of took on a mind of its own in a way that we were fueling it at first, and then it started fueling us back. And so it sort of became a thing that now, as much as Spencer and I teach on it, we learn just as much just by the feedback and the growth and things people are seeing in the market and questions that are asked. Mm-hmm. And so it's really created this really cool dialogue. Just our readers, and even between Spencer and I, we call each other all the time to talk about certain ideas or things that we might be modeling. So, it was originally, there's a need here. And, I know that pressure and that feeling, and, to be able to, put it out there and kind of get feedback and also help alleviate other people's tensions for most of it for free, right? You could download our models for free for educational purposes. And so, it just sort of spun off and took this life of its own. So,
yeah, I think that's true. So while the primary driver behind creating Adventures in CRE was, hey, let's get this information out there. Personally, it was a resource. It was a medium through which I could learn concepts. And I know that sounds strange, right? Many of our blog posts were teaching concepts, but a lot of learning happens through teaching. So maybe we pick up an else's model and we go, that's interesting. Let me give an example. So there was a thesis done by an MIT real estate student, Mr. Leung, and I can post his first name. I forget it, but he wrote this phenomenal thesis on Monte Carlo simulation and stochastic analysis using Monte Carlo simulations in real estate, which really isn't done. And it was shared with me by one of our readers, and it was a concept I was interested in, simply because it was something I didn't really know much about. I understood probabilistic analysis from some portfolio theory courses that I'd taken in grad school, and I understood Black-Scholes models and things for pricing options that use this sort of analysis. But it really wasn't done in real estate. And so the blog became an outlet where here's a concept I wanted to learn. How about I build a model, provide it, learn from it, get feedback from the audience, and then iterate, as Michael described, iterate that model as I receive feedback, as I became more proficient in that particular skill. And I can extrapolate this to 100 other concepts that we've explored over the years on Adventures in CRE. So while the blog, we wanted the information to get out there, and that's why we created it. But also, it's not all altruistic. There's a personal reason for creating this that helps us as we're learning and improving and growing in our careers.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah, and it's also fun to watch, the audience grow, like it sort of took on this energy, and for us to be able to kind of monitor the audience grow, like it sort of took on this energy, and for us to be able to kind of monitor and say, oh wow, look at this. It wasn't even a business at the time. I was like, look at our website sort of gain traction and grow and create sort of this, which I like to call this ecosystem, which I think Spencer and I are trying to create, where, everybody who's in our niche, and by niche, I mean people relatively new to real estate, starting out, or they're within their first 5 years. Here's a one-stop shop where we're talking about things that you need to know. You go to a lot of events and things, and we're talking at 10,000 feet, and it's about, strategies or things people see in the market, down the road, things like that. Well, this was sort of an avenue to speak to, okay, what are we as people earlier on in our careers? And, Spencer and I are now, moving on and getting, but it's like getting into the personal in a way. Like this is your career. How do you advance your career within the industry, rather than here's the high level strategies, which you get that, and there's plenty of other places where you can get that information and get very sophisticated, detailed information.
So maybe let's talk about even just the evolution of the website itself. So you guys, when you were first starting out, let's say your first year, the content that you were posting. So I've read some of the content that you posted in the last 12 months, and it is incredible, high quality, really good content. And so maybe talk about did any of your goals change? Did the way you produce content change? I mean, I know you have a ton of models. Did it start that way? So was there phases, like, first year we did this? And talk about the evolution a little bit of what the site started out as, and then today, what your goal is for that site, how you're helping people today.
Yeah, it's like as you do it. Early on, so we have a WordPress site.
And you guys were students.
When we started, we were students,
okay.
Right? Yeah, and so we had a basic WordPress theme. It was a blog theme, and it wasn't flashy. We didn't have the ability for a user to log in and download models. It was there was a simple tool that would email out a model when someone wanted it. And then the quality of the blog posts themselves, it's not that they were necessarily worse. It's just we didn't understand how to format a blog post in a way to make it easy to digest.
Right.
The audio quality of some of my earlier videos, a lot of my earlier videos are pretty bad. And so those sorts of things I've learned. I think the underlying content itself really hasn't changed, the quality of the content, but maybe the presentation of that content has improved over these years.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Michael?
No, yeah, I think Spencer hit it.
Okay.
He hit the main points.
We've gotten better at producing that content faster too, right? So when we want to get something out, it used to take us a month. Where now, was that because you were doing research and learning these concepts, like gaining the information, or was that just because you were not as good at producing content? It took us longer to edit videos. Writing 500 or 1,000 words just took longer because we weren't as good at it. Michael?
No, I think that's right. But I think we're also adding, like before it was primarily financial modeling focused, and it always will be, and it is that. We just added an events page,
right? And
our goal is to make that very comprehensive, where you can come on, you can find it's getting there. From when we started, we've added a glossary, we've added a deep dive series. I mean, there's a lot.
Job board,
and all of this is just things that have piqued our interest at some point where we couldn't find that information. So as we grow and we're scaling, we have the ability to provide more of these things. And we're always kind of thinking of these ideas to where, okay, what is it that people who come and they're looking how to underwrite, they're looking about the technical aspects of the day-to-day job, like what else do they need? What else are they looking for? And so, the job board, the events page.
Yeah, let me just quickly address the event page. And I think this gives then, or it describes how how content comes to be on the site, right? So it's not like necessarily that Michael and I sit down and we brainstorm out what we want the site to look like. It's more down and we brainstorm out what we want the site to look like. It's more, we talk to our readers almost every day.
You guys get a lot of emails from your readers.
A lot of emails.
Yeah.
We take a lot of phone calls, and what come from that are ideas. So the event calendar is an example. Talk to a lot of young professionals who are saying, hey, how do I connect? How do I build a network in the industry? And not everyone has the luxury of a great real estate school and alumni base. And so one way to do that is just join trade organizations. And for those of us in industry, we think, well, I mean, everyone knows NAIOP and ULI and ICSC and all the others, but believe it or not, the younger professionals don't know what those organizations are, let alone what events are coming up. And so we thought, well, let's create a free resource that just kind of compiles all of the events that are happening in the industry for our readers to come and see. And they link back to those organizations so they can register on those organizations' site. But that's how most of the content comes. It's just kind of organic. It's based on what we hear or our own personal interest. And Michael and I say, well, let's put an event calendar together, and then it happens.
Right. And so all of these things kind of happen naturally and organically as the audience evolves with you guys. Is that kind of what I'm gathering?
Yeah, the ideas happen naturally. I mean, we have a lot of things in the queue that, if we had a team, if we had a team of people, there would be a lot of things we implement. We talk all the time. It's, there's not enough time in the day to get all the things we would love to get out there. I mean, we have a bunch of ideas in the queue that, will soon come out.
Well, and look, we're real estate guys at heart. 40 hours a week to a website, but I certainly enjoy producing the content, engaging with people. But he's totally right. I mean, if we had more time, there'd be a lot of other things.
And that is one thing I think makes your guys' content distinct as well. This is not like theoretical. This is boots on the ground. You guys are in the trenches, right? You guys are doing deals, evaluating risk and everything on deals. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And since I've recently left, my previous full-time job, in addition to starting to source and look at, my own deals, there's a lot of other opportunities that come through the door, and you kind of see from different parts of the world, even from smaller non-institutional opportunities. So there's a lot of kind of different things that Spencer and I are looking at. Well, me a little bit more in terms of different opportunities around the globe and just, non-institutional opportunities. So there's a lot of kind of different things that Spencer and I are looking at. Well, me a little bit more in terms of different opportunities around the globe and just, different.
Right. Okay.
Different assets, things like that.
So, in terms of organic, so the site makes a ton of sense. There's amazing content there, and people can learn a lot just by going to the site. There is an interesting. So you guys have the A.CRE Accelerator, right? I want to ask you a little bit. I know we're going to do an episode on that and kind of do a deep dive into it. That way, the people that are interested can learn more about what it's all about and why they might want to consider it. But I would be interested in kind of hearing what the genesis of it was, because it has become, it's kind of gotten a life of its own. Even in just the last, did it launch in January? Was that when it launched?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay. I don't know if you're getting close to 1,000 yet, but you guys have had hundreds and hundreds of people to join that. So maybe kind of what were the issues? What were the circumstances that kind of led to, hey, maybe we should create a program that did this? And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's actually a little different for Michael than me. So for me, it was for years, be getting emails and on phone calls, this question, which is, what do I need to do to become fully proficient in real estate financial modeling? And my response has always been, go to the site, read our posts, download models, tear them apart, put them back together, go to LoopNet, grab case studies, model those deals as if they were your own, and just do it, right? And as you practice and as you do it, you'll become proficient. And that's the truth. And that's still the case today. That for many people, they're looking for to speed that process along, right? Something that holds their hand, tells them learn this first, this second, that provides the process, or at least the process through which I learn to model real estate. And so, a year and a half ago, Michael and I set out to create the curriculum, and we sat down. We said, okay, how did we learn to do this? What needs to be learned first, second, third? And we built out the curriculum, and then it took a lot of time, but over time, we recorded the videos. We built out the 16 courses. We continue now with our advanced concepts course to add lectures, watch me builds, tutorials on the more advanced concepts. But up until the release, we were building out those courses. Ultimately, to solve this, I kept hearing people ask, which is, how do I learn this? I just went to a weekend boot camp, and I feel more lost than ever. And the accelerator is the answer to that.
Right. Michael, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. It's somewhat similar, and to a large degree, it was, we, and I'm speaking a little bit for Spencer here, we're not able to find that process in any of the courses we took. Spencer actually took a weekend course, financial modeling boot camp, so to speak. And, somebody who's just figuring out, Control C, Control V, copy paste, is in the same class as somebody who understands waterfall modeling potentially. And so you're teaching all at once live, and it just didn't cut it, and I never really got to understand it. And so I think what happened over time, it just didn't cut it, and I never really got to understand it. And so I think what happened over time is that Spencer and I come from a unique perspective where, we could talk to you from people who didn't understand. For me personally, when I was first starting to understand all this, I didn't understand what NPV was, what IRR was. And so every time somebody tried to explain it to me, when they explained it to me, it seemed like they were under the assumption that I knew something already that I felt like I didn't personally, right? And so it would always lose its translation. So one day, it finally clicked. NPV, IRR, these things really intuitively made sense to me, and I understood what it meant talking to a 5-year-old and bridging that gap. And I had yet to see that out there. And I think for everything through the accelerator, from modeling interest reserves to partnerships. And so the value of the accelerator is that we are able to walk you through from, in Buddhist terminology, the beginner's mind, right? Yeah. We're able to walk you through from the beginner's mind to full understanding, because we know the path, we've walked it. I know what it means to have no idea what time value of money is. All of these concepts that you need to understand. And so I think what the accelerator does very well is it takes you, like Spencer said, that chronological step. What do you need to know? How do you need to know it? Before you move on to doing anything else, you really need to understand this. And we explain it in a way that's very clear, because we know where you are from, again, the beginner's mind. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't take long. So if you're more advanced, you breeze through that in the first couple of courses, and then we get into the stuff that Spencer and I have been picking up and learning through our own self-studies, through seeing dozens of models, through our day jobs and stuff like that. So we go from the advanced with that in mind, right? Because I've been talked to 1,000 times. People said, "Oh, you'll understand financial modeling. You'll get it at some point." Or it was like, "Here's how it works.
Take this through osmosis."
Yeah, take this model, and then I'd be sweating. And I'm open kimono here. I'm going to tell you a story. I joined the Heinz ULI competition my first year, but I was the financial modeling guy, because that's all I cared about. I wanted to know it, and I was willing to kind of what is it saying? Peek a little bit over your skis, or whatever that saying is. And so I took it on with a huge group, and I remember it was like the 11 o'clock hour. It was like 20 minutes left, and I have a buddy, Stephen Porter, who in my mind at that time was like the financial modeling guy. I was calling him on the phone like repeatedly, and he left his class to answer. He's like, "All right," and he tried to explain it to me and walk me through it. And I felt the pressure, and honestly, I failed that, but I was, and so I get what it means to not understand it and get there. And so, that was really, the genesis of the accelerator. We have our models there, and it's helpful to pick apart on the front end of the website. And,
Right.
There's tons of value on there. You could find, a lot of basic concepts. You can find a lot of advanced models on the front end, but the accelerator is really where it gets pieced together. And, we could take that pressure off that I felt doing the ULI competition that first year at grad school. I know that feeling. And so,
there is something to be said for, on the one hand, for suffering the dents and the dings and the bruises of going through those kind of things. Cause you have like visceral knowledge at that point. But there's another, with a resource like the accelerator available, now a person has a choice to, we call it pay the gap tax, right? They can choose whether or not they want to pay the gap tax. And the gap tax is, listen, you can learn financial modeling doing it the hard way, like piecing information together, going to LoopNet, finding deals to model this, that, and the other with no help. And that might take you years potentially, or you can go through the accelerator and learn it in a matter of weeks, right? And become proficient. So, that's great. So, let's kind of give the listeners a little bit of an idea what to expect from the Adventures in CRE audio series, what they can expect from you guys. I know you have some exciting guests that are going to be on the audio series here. So what can they expect?
Yeah, I'll field that one. So I think our goal for the audio series is to answer many of the questions that our readers just ask us on a day-to-day basis. We get hundreds of emails a week. We take calls at least every week, and many of the questions are the same. And so our thought was, let's get out there in an audio form answers to many of these questions. But our readers are tired of hearing from us. We don't necessarily like to hear ourselves talk. And so why not bring on guests who have knowledge around specific topics, and then we'll ask them questions and we'll hear what they have to say and hopefully add some value to those who are listening.
Michael?
Yeah. And so, to add to that, we'll have, a recruiter from a major real estate investment and development firm. We'll have an entrepreneur who's now a principal of a major, real estate development company. Who else? We'll have a headhunter on.
Yeah, we have a international, someone from South Africa who was at a private equity broker in South Africa.
And then we have the head of a major MBA program, the head of the UNC real estate, the Wood Center, who is in charge of all real estate programming for the MBA program, and I believe undergrad too at UNC. I think undergrad's included there.
But the idea is so real estate financial modeling is one piece of this. We also want to talk about careers. That's an important one. We want to talk about education. Many of our readers ask, hey, should I get an MBA or should I get a master's in real estate? What does it take to be admitted to a major, kind of one of the top masters in real estate or MBA programs? We're going to cover those sorts of topics. So just the questions that our readers are always asking us is what we're going to try to get at.
How do I break into commercial real estate? How do I transition from my current job if I'm in an unrelated field? And also how do I pivot into another role within commercial real estate if I'm in one? How do I best position myself? So it's those questions.
And you do have a lot of readers and even accelerator members that are not in that beginning stage. They're in that advanced stage, even in their career, right? And a lot of because modeling is relatively, as far as, widespread proficiency, that's not like everybody. The reason that Adventures in CRE is popular site is because modeling is an emerging concept, and you guys are kind of at the forefront of that. And so those higher level people that are even advancing in their career, whether they're an entrepreneur or whether they work for, a big company, these people too that will be providing added value for as well?
Yeah. So let me rephrase what you said. In real estate financial modeling is not a new concept. What's changed is real estate is becoming best practices that weren't really followed until recently. And part of that is you now have formal education in real estate. institutions who in the 80s allocated maybe 1%, if that, to commercial real estate now allocate 10%. And as a result, there is greater sophistication in how real estate's modeled. If you read our website, you'll know we use the term institutional. Really what we're saying is that there's a level of analysis that's now required of investors, of lenders, that maybe wasn't required 10 or 15 years ago, when kind of back of the envelope analysis was sufficient to get a deal funded. That's just not the case today. And so you better be modeling to a levered and unlevered IRR. You better understand how to get to an equity multiple. You better be able to model both property level and partnership level returns, where maybe that wasn't as common 10, 15 years ago. So.
Right. Well, so I think I'm excited. I think everybody else is pretty excited for this audio series. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we've got a lot more coming for these guys for the remainder of the season. So thanks for tuning in, you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Adventures in CRE audio series. For show notes and additional resources, head over to www.adventuresincre.com/audio series. Would you like to learn real estate financial modeling in a matter of weeks and do it with zero guesswork? If so, the A.CRE Accelerator is for you. The Accelerator is a step-by-step, case-based program designed to teach you exactly what you need to know and in the order you need to know it, so you can gain both the knowledge and experience to take your career to the next level. To see if the Accelerator is right for you, go to www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator.